Real-time crime centers have become a cornerstone of modern policing, helping agencies connect information faster, improve coordination, and make smarter decisions when seconds matter most. But building or refreshing a center can be complex. Constant Technologies helps simplify the process. Constant has partnered with law enforcement agencies across the country to plan, design, and build real-time crime centers, communications centers, drone operation rooms, and emergency operations centers, spaces that are purpose-built to support today's public safety missions. From American-built operator consoles to advanced video wall systems, we focus on the physical environment and technology infrastructure that brings your data and teams together. Our experienced design team works closely with your agency to create layouts and plans that support current operations and future growth. The result is a command environment where video communications and collaboration come together, helping your team move from reactive to proactive policing. Learn more at constanttech.com and schedule a complimentary design consultation. To get started, contact my friend, Lieutenant Sean Arthur, retired from the Collier County Sheriff's Office, at 239-469-4901. Welcome to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. I'm John Creamer, Deputy Executive Director of FDSA. Each episode, I sit down with law enforcement thought leaders to tackle critical issues shaping the future of public safety. Together, we'll explore key topics that empower law enforcement professionals to navigate challenges, lead with confidence, and advance their careers. Take a pause, gain valuable insights, and lead your career with purpose. Thanks for listening. Welcome to A Tactical Pause. This is your host, John Creamer. This episode, we are going to celebrate our 30th podcast, and we've called this episode Pearls of Wisdom. And the reason we call it Pearls of Wisdom is usually when you celebrate an anniversary, especially the 30th anniversary, you reward somebody with pearls. So that's why we call this episode Pearls of Wisdom. Joining me today in a different format is our executive producer, Pam. Pam produces a podcast and makes us sound world-class, and we're glad to have her. So today's more about Q&A, and Pam's going to ask me some questions and go over the history of A Tactical Pause. So welcome, Pam.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you on this side of the microphone.
Well, I'm looking forward to this episode.
Okay.
So let's get started.
All right. Talk to me.
All right. Let's get back to the beginning when we started. Why did you want to start this podcast?
Personally, I thought this would be an outlet for the last 35 years of my life to talk about things I've done right, things I've done wrong, things that are interesting to me. And along the way, it might be interesting to other people. It might help people find a few nuggets to succeed or some things to avoid as they move forward.
All right. So let's talk about when you were launching. What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Purpose, mission, audience, and budget. So the purpose had to be bigger than what I wanted, because initially for me, like I said, it was an outlet, but it's turned into something bigger than that. And the purpose is to help our first responders and anybody that listens to slow down and take a tactical pause and look at this as more than a job and think about why you got into this profession, what your purpose was, what your calling was, and to remember that as you move forward, as you move towards the finish line. Some of the other challenges were the expenses, the money that came along with how do you produce a podcast, how much does it cost? And then we found some wonderful sponsors. And then the mission of the podcast. It really is, our mission at FDSA is to serve those who serve, and this is just an extension of that.
Right, exactly. All right. Was there a moment early on when we were putting this all together when you thought this might not work? Maybe no one's going to listen.
Yeah, sometimes I still feel that way. I'm always surprised when I go somewhere and somebody gives me positive feedback about the podcast, and it's actually sometimes it's super humble. It's humbling all the time, but sometimes it's unnerving. Mm-hmm. I've had a U.S. senator that I saw at a conference tell me she loved the podcast. I've had a congressman tell me that. I've had a handful of sheriffs, and every time somebody says I love your podcast, I'm always pleasantly surprised that somebody listens. So there's been plenty of times when I didn't think this would move forward.
Right. Understand. So what did you underestimate about launching a podcast?
The work that goes into it, the work that you and your team here do, the research that I have to do, vetting a guest to make sure that when the guest comes on the podcast, they actually talk about what they said they were going to talk about. And then some of the other challenges are so many things change so quickly in the first responder realm. Is what we're talking about relevant? Is it relevant today, and is it evergreen? Will it be relevant tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. So what have you learned? What have you walked away learning about having these kinds of conversations over the past 29 episodes?
I've learned that we are a tribe, that first responders are a tribe, and we might wear different uniforms and our badges might be a little bit different, but we all have the same goal, and that is to serve our community and make it better. But along the way, each one of us is still seeking validation that we don't get. And we're just a band of brothers and sisters. And this podcast, sometimes there's the red thread that runs through it. And that's what I've learned, is that we really are a tribe, regardless of the color of our uniform or our badge.
So what kind of gap did you see in conversations in the law enforcement community that you wanted to address in the podcast?
That's a great question. Okay, so some of the gaps are, as a police chief, a fire chief, a sheriff, or somebody that's up in the food chain or the chain of command, the truth is there's certain things they can't talk about, because there's liability or it violates policy, or sometimes you just can't be authentic when you get to that rank because you represent way more than yourself. The gap is authenticity. I think I've been authentic with my struggles. I've been authentic with the things that are interesting to me, and I think I bring that to the table. And I think most of our guests are authentic and genuine people that came in here to be real and raw and talk about issues. So that was the gap, and then just keeping it real. There's things I can say on this podcast that I can't say in my past former role as an administrator. I could never say those things. Mm-hmm. Here I can.
So who did you have in mind when you thought about who was going to listen to this podcast? Did you just think it was going to be, deputies, members of FTSA, and how has that changed over the past year?
I had people like me in mind that got into law enforcement with a purpose, with a goal, and somewhere along the way they kind of forgot what that was. Mm-hmm. And they got bogged down by, frankly, some of the bullshit that comes with work, either internally or externally, the things they pick up, the trauma that sticks along the way, or some of the organizational betrayal that they've experienced. Mm-hmm. So my audience was somebody like me that I got into this job for this reason, and I'm running out of runway. How do I go to the next level? And as a subplot, I wanted to talk about things that a lot of people don't get exposed to, like AI. When we had Major George Pereira on, we talked a lot about AI and chatbots and what's the future of policing. We also had Robbie on from St. Johns County. We talked a lot about financial wellness. Those are things that were interesting to me, and I wish I would have known when I was a much younger first responder. And then the thread that runs through here, too, is resilience and wellness. And there's so many programs that are out there right now that are available that most people still don't know they're out there. So those are super important.
So let's go back to the name of the podcast, because you knew the name very early on when we started working together.
Yeah, I did.
So tell me about where that came from. What does that mean in the lens of law enforcement?
Okay, let me unpack that for a second. Okay. So everything in law enforcement is cyclical. Everything we do is cyclical. It might go away and then it comes back with a shiny name or new label or something that's people are like, ooh, what's that? So right now we are in the era of de-escalation. It's the same. Yeah. We're doing the same thing we did in the 90s, where you slow the train down. You're like, why are we here? Why are we at this call for service? Do we have the authority to be here? Should we do these things? Let's slow down. Let's take a deep breath before we move forward. Mm-hmm. Today, they call it de-escalation. And we talked about the sanctity of human life. That's always been around. We're just talking about it more. But they just call it de-escalation today. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember the person that said this phrase first, but somebody said, what is de-escalation? And it was a sheriff somewhere in South Florida. He said, all it is taking a tactical pause. That's all it is. You have your perimeter set up, inner and outer perimeter. You have all your elements there in case we have to go in and make an entry and put hands on somebody or take a life or prevent bloodshed. They're all there. But before we do that, Let's take a tactical pause and let's reevaluate why we're here. So to me, in my life, we had something called combat breathing. So combat breathing is you're on the way to a really hot call, you have an adrenaline dump, you're in the SWAT van and you're on the way to make an entry somewhere. You slow down and you take some deep tactical breaths. So I blended those two. This is called a tactical pause because in your career sometimes you have to slow down and take a deep breath and resurvey the land and go, am I who I'm supposed to be? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I the right agency? Am I the right person? Am I going down the right path? So, yeah, this was when we talked about forming this, a tactical pause is the only name I ever wanted to call this podcast. Right. Long answer.
So do you think that officers give themselves enough space to pause?
No, and that's a great question, too. No matter what you read in the media right now, because there are some agencies or some news organizations saying that the recruiting problem for first responders is over. No, it's not over by a long stretch. It might be over in a certain agency because they found the X factor to fill their all their vacancies. Mm-hmm. But for the majority of first responders, not just cops, there's a tremendous amount of vacancies. So that means they're short-staffed. That means they run call to call to call with no downtime whatsoever. So they accumulate all this stuff in 12 hours, and I bet they never take a deep breath. Literally, they probably never take a deep breath the entire shift, let alone what our telecommunicators do, our firefighters, our detention folks. So no, I that's a whole other subject. Bonnie is going to come back on our podcast, I think, next week. So we're going to do a whole episode about your environment, slowing things down, breathing, having things in your space to help you calm down in between calls for service or, while you're writing a report. But no, I don't think officers, deputies, firemen, or anybody actually takes a deep breath through a shift.
So let's look back on the first 29 episodes. What themes did you see that keep showing up again and again?
There's the obvious theme of leadership. There's a theme of wellness and resilience. And I think a subplot that if you look for it would be forgiveness. And what I mean by all those is that you don't have to have an insignia sewn on your arm or a rank attached to your collar to be a leader. Anybody that's a first responder is a leader in society. They stepped up, they took an oath, and they're a leader in society. So the things we talk about are to help them. And along the way, they help me, too, be a better human being. Resilience and wellness. We can't get enough of that. There's an epidemic in law enforcement. There's an epidemic for first responders of being dead at the age of 60 or within 5 years of retirement, just walking out of the game being miserable. And we can't have that anymore. So it's about wellness and resiliency because that first responder has a family. He or she has a family at home waiting on them. And that's who they should really focus on, not what happened at work. And then lastly, it's forgiveness. It's forgiveness for the mistakes we made in our career, the mistakes we're going to make in our career. It's forgiving ourselves for the times we weren't all in, that we weren't present, that we shortcutted a call, we shortcutted a family event. So those are the themes that kind of run through the episodes.
Were there any moments when a guest said something that made you really stop and think that more people in this profession need to hear this? I'm sure there are many of those moments, but are there any that really stand out for you?
Yeah, you're right. Every episode to me is super personal because it's I'm having a one-on-one conversation that the rest of the world can listen to, but for me it's personal. But I would go back to two people. One would be my friend and mentor, Kelly Burke, when he was on the show. I've known Kelly for so long, and he's been such a mentor to me, even long after we've both been out of our job as first responders. But Kelly would always say the quote, "But God, ... Mm-hmm. And that's pivotal. And then the second one would be when JP was on the show. So JP is Jeffrey James Potts. He's an Orange County sergeant now. He got promoted during the tenure of our podcast, not because of me, but maybe. And his story is just this raw story of courage, of bravery, of getting up and getting back in the game no matter how many times he's been knocked down. So JP's story, every time I see that young man or think about him, He is, as Teddy Roosevelt talked about, he is the man in the arena.
Well, that is one of our top listened to episodes. So I just encourage everyone to go back and listen to two episodes. And it's just been very well received.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to ask me later, but what are our top episodes? I would think JP would be one. I would think the things we did with the Consolidated Dispatch Agency about the shooting at FSU.
And we're coming to the 1-year anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah, this
I
week.
would think those two would be popular. And then I don't know.
Sheriff Rosie.
Oh, yeah. Sheriff Rosie.
Yeah, she came on twice.
Yep.
Yep. So both of her episodes are very well listened to. So, yeah, those were. Mike Steele was another one.
Yeah, Dr. Steele.
Yeah, leadership. And we had a few, the financial.
With Robbie?
Robbie. Yeah, that was another well listened to. So, all great themes.
Yeah.
All great themes.
Yeah, so Sheriff Rosie, I mean, she really is, she brings this whole fresh approach to law enforcement leadership, this whole fresh approach to being a sheriff in Florida, and just the confidence and courage she exudes is, it's a pleasure to be around her. Mike Steele, I've known for a couple of years. I think Mike is also hitting on all cylinders when it comes to his type of what I call personal accountability leadership. And I always learn something from Mike, even if I'm in the back of the room and he's lecturing. There's something I walk away with that I didn't think about before I went in. And Robbie is also one of our most highly sought-after speakers. We do, like a speaker series across the state. And Robbie's classes are always packed, and he makes an impact on folks. That's good to hear that. And we'll be right back. Every day you put your life on the line to protect and serve. Who's protecting you? United Badges Insurance Services operates as a dedicated resource for the first responder public safety community. Serving thousands of first responders, United Badges offers a wide range of products including commercial insurance, group accident and health insurance, and personal insurance such as auto, home, renters, rental properties, vacation properties, boat, motorcycle, RVs, flood, and umbrella. United Badges serves active and retired public safety personnel, public safety agencies, public safety associations, public safety support businesses, and public safety families and friends. Experience the United Badges difference. Call 800-566-5990 or visit unitedbadges.com to request your free insurance quote today. United Badges Insurance Services is a proud strategic partner of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. Applicants are individually underwritten by each respective insurance carrier and subject to insurance policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states. Promotional material for descriptive purposes only. Now back to the show.
So what do you think separates those who grow from the content that you've covered over the past year versus those who don't? What makes them different?
Emotional intelligence.
Let's talk about that more.
Okay, so there's something called PTG. It's called post-traumatic growth. And there's also something called EI, or emotional intelligence. I think, again, what do I know? I'm just a guy that barely got through high school and has a bachelor's degree, barely, and was blessed with a career. And my interpretation of like Maslow's hierarchy and some of the other things I've read is we should always be striving for the next level for self-actualization. And there are plenty of first responders that know they're stuck or feel like they're about to get stuck. And if they hear a pearl of wisdom on this podcast, and let's be honest, it's probably not from me, it's going to be from one of our guests. If they take that and apply to their life, there's a good chance that's the first step to solving some of their problems. But they have to be willing to do that. Here's an example. Is I had the privilege to speak at a conference in Syracuse, New York, just a couple days ago, and I was doing a class on this very subject about resiliency, about finishing strong, about remembering your why, finding your why, no matter where you are in your career. And at the end, this guy's name was Michael, and he came up to me, and he's like, "Hey, thank you." And I'm like, "Why did you come to this class?" And he said, "Well, I was trying to do this on my own. And I came here," and he's like, "You just kind of highlighted what I've been doing on my own." And I thanked him for having the emotional intelligence to do that on his own and not wait till he was getting suspended, divorced, or somebody was intervening in his life. He intervened in his own life.
Yeah, well, and I think we're talking about doing a future episode on that topic, right?
On post-traumatic growth?
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many things that the future of this podcast is limitless. There's so many things we can talk about, but we definitely need to do an episode on post-traumatic growth. What is it? We talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress injury, complex post-traumatic stress. How do you get out of that? Do you have to sit in that label the rest of your life, or can you move forward? Can you move upward? Yes, you can move forward and upward. If you want to sit in it, but you shouldn't stay there too long.
What are your plans for the next year, the next 29 episodes?
I'm so excited. I wish we could do a podcast a week, to be honest with you. There's so many leaders in the first responder realm that have really good things to say that really could alter somebody's career. But, we actually have some folks that are going to come back and do like round 2. Like Sheriff Rosie's done 2 episodes, but there's a whole bunch of people that are coming back because as they continue to evolve and grow where they are, they're learning and researching more information, and they're going to bring it back to us. Like Bonnie's coming on for the second time, and a lot of things she's going to talk about is our senses and how we can de-escalate ourselves and take a tactical pause in a patrol car, how we change gears on the way home. And she's got some new research, and there's just all these directions that we're going to go in.
What's a piece of advice from a guest that has really struck you personally?
The best advice I think I can remember right now is probably going back to maybe my friend Sheriff Mike Atkinson. Mike is a lifelong learner. Mike is he's gonna be so embarrassed when I say this. Mike is a Renaissance man. The guy constantly has a book in his hand. He's constantly listening to something on Audible. He's constantly quoting something. He's a lifelong learner. And what Mike does to me is he pushes me to continue to grow, to learn, to evolve. And we need to do that to one another. Mm-hmm. So not only is Mike a friend and a peer, he's also a mentor. And I think we all need a mentor and we all need a mentee. And that's one of the biggest things I've gotten from a guest is there's so many, but one of them is from Mike to keep moving forward.
So I know that there have been a lot of hard truths that have really come out in a lot of these episodes. And, what do you see what those hard truths are for this profession?
We have to own where we are and what we've done. You can blame the agency. You can blame the unit that you're in. You can blame the trauma you picked up because you chose to go to a certain unit. But at the end of the day, the only person that can make your career, your life any better is you. And you can point the finger up at the ivory tower and the person that's wearing 4 stars, and you can point this way and that way, but the only person that can turn you around and go in a different direction is you. So I would say some personal accountability. You've probably been screwed over. You probably screwed somebody over. You've probably done a stellar job. You've probably done a crappy job at times. You probably had a season of excellence. You probably had a season of lackluster performance, but you're the only one that can fix it. So start moving.
Right. What about from the mental health perspective?
From the mental health perspective, I think it's just so important to realize that we're not robots. That from people from my era, so I started in 1992, and then most people that know me or have listened, I came from a first responder family, and my dad started as a firefighter in 1966, and I had an uncle that started in policing in 1968. My first sergeant that I worked for, his name tag said serving since 1963. I wasn't born. These guys are all Vietnam vets. So my generation was taught to say nothing, do nothing, go home and drink it out, fight it out, make some really stupid decisions to numb the pain and get back in the game. So when it comes to mental health, all that stuff I just told you is garbage advice. The best thing to do is to talk to somebody and to admit to yourself, I'm not doing really good on that. Let me get a little bit of help. But that all starts internally with me going, I probably need to talk to somebody. And as a peer, Pam, the strongest thing that I can do is ask you or a squad mate or a work peer if I see that they might be struggling with something, somebody that's normally squared away and dressed and their uniform's sharp and now all of a sudden they're kind of disheveled or they have bags under their eyes or they're tired, is how are you doing? And our standard answer is going to be, I'm fine. But to really drill down later and go, no, tell me the truth. How you doing? And then maybe start a conversation.
So you talked a little bit about your supervisors from a previous time. What about these new recruits that are coming in, the younger generation? How is it different? What are they learning differently? Are they learning anything differently? How are they handling all this?
Another great question. I think that a lot of times we look down on the generations coming in and be like, they're not going to make it. When these people that are coming in are actually going to make policing better than it's ever been. They're the ones that ask the questions. They're the ones that are going to solve the problems that we've thought of. How do we fix this for decades? And they're going to be like, here's how you fix it. So we have to give them props because they are the next generation. They are brave enough to walk along our path, and they're going to pick up the torch and run with it. However, I think through COVID and some things in modern day society, I think that some communication skills, probably some face-to-face communication skills probably need to be developed. And frankly, a lot of folks these days don't know what it's like to be in a fight. And I know that sounds really, barbaric, but sometimes in this job, we're going to get in a scuffle and a fight with somebody, not to hurt them, but maybe to subdue them or keep them from hurting other people. And you have to know what it's like when you get hit, that you're going to be okay. It's not going to hurt. It might hurt. Fight through it. You're going to get through it, but don't give up. So I think we need to help our recruits walk into this job with eyes wide open. We need to really prepare them mentally for what they're about to encounter, physically for them to be physically fit, spiritually and emotionally. They need to know what they're getting into. And another big piece of that is financially, because it's a game changer when you get your first job and you actually have a career and you make money, to save that up and not squander it.
So what is one leadership lesson that everyone listening to the podcast, regardless of where they are in their career, whatever rank they are, that they should really carry with them?
The only person that can change is you. The only person that you can change is you. Ask yourself for the courage to realize I'm the only person that can change, and to have the courage to take that first step.
So how has hosting this podcast changed the way that you think about leadership or even the profession?
It's made me realize that leaders are human beings. They're flesh and blood. Leadership is leadership is leadership. So whether you're a 4-star admiral, or you're a shift supervisor at Target, or you're a watch commander on midnight shift, leadership is leadership. The only way to know somebody is to work beside somebody. The only way to work beside somebody is to get out of your office and go work with them shoulder to shoulder and see what they do, see what their interests are. But a lot of times when you talk to a law enforcement leader, you think they're omnipotent, and they're not. They're not. And they'll tell you that. Yes, they've been exposed to a lot of things, and they might be subject matter experts in some things, but they're not SMEs in everything. And a good leader doesn't know all the answers. A good leader knows the questions to ask. So along the way in these podcasts, it's been really nice to see the human element, like Congressman Jimmy Patronis, the way he related leadership from his career, his like family tradition in the restaurant business, and then to see here's this guy serving in the U.S. Congress, and he's as humble. You wouldn't know that. I mean, he could come put an appetizer on your table. You'd never know that he represents the 1st District of Florida. It's just that they're real human beings, and they know they make mistakes. They also don't get credit for some of the genius things they do.
Right. Yeah, we're always going to call them out on the mistakes they make.
Yeah.
Before we recognize them.
Yeah. And it's easy to sit at your house on your couch and be like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. Well, if you think they should have done that, maybe you should go to the academy and sign up, and you come make that decision.
So based on all these conversations you've had, where do you see law enforcement heading in the next, 5 to 10 years?
It's the next frontier. Everything's about to be automated. You're always going to need human beings in policing. You're always going to need human beings as first responders. You're going to need humans to have mercy and have the gift of mercy and the gift of courage. That can never be replaced by a machine or AI or anything like that. However, as machines grow, there's machine learning, there's AI, there's super AI. All these things are going to be force multipliers that should help first responders' jobs be more effective and efficient. That's exciting. I think we need to embrace it. We cannot stop it. We have to embrace it. However, we also need to take a tactical pause and recognize that there always needs to be human eyes, human discernment that looks at something. And what I mean by that is, here's just one example of thousands. One example is this. There's software out there now that if a deputy sheriff or subnote, even some firefighters and paramedics these days are wearing body-worn cameras because of the litigious society that we lead or we live in. But there's some software that are AI software that's built into body-worn cameras, not just one manufacturer, but several. That software, when you dock your body-worn camera or you upload the footage, it starts writing a report for you. It tells you what it saw. And if you're in a hurry, you're not going to go back and edit it and write what you saw. So one of the biggest things facing law enforcement is Graham versus Connor, which is like the foundational case law on use of force. And it talks about an individual officer's 5 senses, their experience. All these things are decision-making factors in when they use force or didn't use force. And if we let a machine write a report, we're stripping that away.
We're taking that human element out.
Exactly. So we have to validate and vet, like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify the data that we're getting from artificial intelligence. So that's what I think the future is.
Let's talk about the next 29 episodes. I know you talked briefly about some of the topics that we're going to cover, but how are the next year is going to be? How is it going to be different?
Well, I think we're gonna pick the pace up. There's a mental health epidemic in law enforcement and all first responders. I say law enforcement a lot because that was my drug of choice. But coming from like I said, my dad was a firefighter. There's tons of first responders in my family, my extended family, but it's an epidemic in all first responders. And there's research now that's been done, at least in Florida, by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, by one of our guests, Secretary Matt Walsh and his team. But you can statistically say that the propensity to commit suicide is usually done by a younger first responder in their first couple of years or by somebody that recently retired. We need to figure out why that is, and we also need to start looking at the people that are in the middle of that bell curve so we can prevent them from going down that pathway when their time comes. So we're going to pick up more about resiliency, about wellness, about suicide facts versus fiction, and we're also going to start talking more about the trends in first responders. We're going to bring Major George Pereira, who is about to be promoted to division chief. Again, I'd love to say it was because of the podcast, but it's because of his hard work and tenacity. But George is going to come back on, and we're really going to drill back into AI, specifically AI. So we're going to do a lot of things to help first responders along the way, not just interesting stuff, but things that could actually change their lives, things that they could walk away from and be like, I wonder if I should try that. Maybe that would help me.
There are going to be some guests coming back from FDLE as well to really dig into what they're doing over there.
Exactly. Yeah. FDLE is, they're setting the pace nationally when it comes to this wellness research. So yeah, there's a whole contingency of different folks from FDLE, not just sworn folks, but people that have a lot of letters after their name that are doing a lot of hard work to make the lives of all first responders better. They'll be on as well.
So if listeners, stick with the podcast, stick around with us, what can they expect to gain over, the next year or so?
Well, what we talked about is evolution. Right? We should all strive to be lifelong learners, and that includes me and you, and the things we bring to this program is we want to just keep this thing up and move in the right direction and stay relevant with the trends and patterns that all first responders face, whether it's through technology, equipment, or what's in their head and in their hearts.
So what do you see for this podcast in, let's say, 5 years from now?
I would like to see the podcast done weekly, and maybe there'll be somebody, hopefully, that person's already alive and well, somebody that's way better at this than me that would come in and take this to the next level, and that our followership would grow, not because we want likes and things like that, it's because we're having an impact. And Pam, let me ask you a question. When you do our statistics, where is our listenership? Is it just here in Florida? Where do we have listeners at?
Most of it is in Florida, but we do see other areas of the country listening. And I think it's just the topics, not necessarily the guests that are from Florida, but I think Florida's leading the way in so many ways in law enforcement. And so that's what we're seeing.
Are there any listeners outside the U.S.?
There are. Yeah, there are. Yeah. There are a few.
That's crazy, the power of the internet.
So what do you think it truly means to take this tactical pause in today's environment? Like what does that truly mean for you?
For me, and even in my position now, which I'm not wearing a uniform anymore. I'm still sworn. Technically, I'm still sworn. But I look at my job, my mission is really to help other first responders get across the finish line and walk out of this profession and have a really good life when they leave this profession. For me to take a tactical pause is for me to stop, because it's so easy for me to get spun up and be like, oh, we got to get this person on the show. I need to research this. I need to research that. And then I forget about me, my personal needs, the things that are going on in my personal life. In the last couple of years, I've lost a brother, a father, a marriage. My mother's ill. My children are growing up. Those things are super important as well, and I can't lose sight of that. But I also need to remember my why. My why in life right now is completely different than it was in 1992. And I need to slow down and look where my feet are to remind me that I am present somewhere and to be present in that room. So for me, taking a tactical pause is to stand still, do some situational awareness, do some personal evaluation. Where are you at? What are you doing? What's important? Are you taking care of yourself? These things. That's what a tactical pause is to me.
And what about your future? Is that part of the pause?
Yeah, because I don't want to be a statistic. Most law enforcement officers are dead at 57 or 60 or within 5 years of retirement. And for our listeners, if you just think about the people you've worked with, you can start seeing faces in your mind. I don't want to be a number. I want to break that, and I hope everybody that listens to this breaks that, and we start moving that number out and out and out, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I see myself growing and evolving and trying to give back as I move forward.
And we had talked about a giveaway, hadn't we?
Yeah. So, for our listeners, whether it's when you listen to this podcast when it's first released in 2026, or you listen to it 5 years later, if you send an email to podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org, that's podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org, one of us will send you a Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association patch. So that's a giveaway. And we'll have more of those moving forward. But right now, if you can hear my voice and you send an email to podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org, I'll make sure you get one of our brand new FDSA patches that was created by my friend Chad Rowan.
Listeners do if they have a suggestion for a topic or a future guest.
Oh, great point, Pam. That's another thing we're doing moving forward. So if a listener has a question for a guest or has a question and would like us to move forward with a topic, same thing. Drop us an email at podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org. If you send an idea or suggestion and we follow it, we will send you an FDSA challenge coin. So again, if you have an idea for a future podcast and it's one that we actually can bring to life, or you have a really good question for one of our guests and we can answer that for you, I'll send you a challenge coin. So again, that's podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org.
All right. And if they have any feedback about the podcast, we'd love to hear it. And any questions for you as well?
Yeah, I would love to get questions, feedback, constructive feedback is what I would like to hear. Constructive is the operative phrase. Any questions they have for me, they can also send an email to that email address, podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are this. I'm grateful and I'm humble that specifically to Keith Dean, our Chief Executive Officer, for seeing the power of a podcasting, allowing this to go forward, for our elected board that has also set aside funds in our budget to allow this podcast to go forward, to believing in the mission. And then my just being humble for the people that stop and listen, for the humble that people that take any pearls of wisdom they hear on this podcast and they apply it to their lives, and for the people that have reached out to me and said, hey, I'm listening to your podcast, you're making a difference. That's so validating, and it shows that what we're doing is working.
Big thank you for the sponsors. And if there's any individuals or companies out there that want to get on board and join us, you're more than welcome. Again, they can reach out to you.
That's right. So, sponsors, a big thank you to Patty and Alan Durham for United Badges Insurance Services. Tremendous sponsors. A big thank you to Sean Arthur at Constant Tech. Huge sponsors, great friend, great product. Safer Watch is our third sponsor. They have a tremendous product for school safety. I encourage you to look at their websites and see if you can do business with them. And if you want to sponsor the podcast, we have room. We'd love to hear from you. So send an email to me at podcast@fldeputiesheriffs.org.
All right. Well, thanks, John. It was great to join you today.
Yeah, Pam. Thanks for being on this side of the microphone. See you guys on the next episode. Thank you for listening to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. FDSA proudly serves over 25,000 deputy sheriffs across the state with legal benefits, vital training, and financial assistance in times of need. You can listen to previous episodes at fldeputysheriffs.org or wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review and encourage your friends, coworkers, and those in the law enforcement community to listen as well. To learn more about the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association and how we serve those who serve, visit our website at fldeputysheriffs.org.